Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast, a place where we explore the world of horror and mystery in film, television, books, and in popular culture. Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome to the latest show. My name is Bruce Markusen, and as always, I'm joined by Tracy Asteria, my trusted co-host and executive producer. Tracy, how was your Christmas?
It was really good. It was nice and quiet, and we had a lovely turkey dinner, and it was really nice. It was very peaceful. How was your Christmas with your family?
It was very nice. My wife, Sue, my daughter, Maddie, they spoiled me once again with an array of presents, including the green screen technology that I'm using this week for the first time. We'll have some fun experimenting with that. But yeah, they always treat me too well at this time of year, so I
Aw.
have no complaints at all. No reason to say anything but the best. They always treat me well, and lucky to have a good family like I do. So
Oh, that's so sweet.
yeah. Oh, that's about as emotional as I've gotten on this show. Shall we take a
And
break
that's
so I
okay.
can regroup?
It's too early for that, Bruce.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing that's been going on. This weather has just been horrendous. This is one of the worst winters in a while, at least based on the start of it. So just
Yes.
last night, we got hit with about a 10 to 12-inch snowstorm. So we had to get our cars out of blocks of snow and ice this morning. That took a little bit of effort, and they're anticipating more snow coming up late Sunday, early Monday. So it's just never ending here. And I know you guys have had a rough time as well.
And I was just thinking about that earlier. The weather has been terrible since, I mean, and we just technically started winter, but it's been
Yeah.
terrible. And we've had like snow squalls and we've had snowstorms. And Monday we have a freezing rain warning for the entire province. We're going to have about 6 hours of freezing rain. We could have power outages. It's just going to be so nasty. I mean, maybe we've been spoiled the last couple of years as far as the weather, but
Yeah.
this year's really been, you know, giving us a real good run for our money and our sanity.
Yeah, it's rough. There's no question about it, but it does make you appreciate spring and summer a whole lot more when they finally do arrive. This show, as we record, is the last show we're recording in 2025. So we really felt it was appropriate to do a kind of a year in review and look at some of the best horror films of this past year. And our guest to talk about that is Kirk Hazen. Kirk is one of our really reliable go-to historians. We've had him on several times in the past. He's also a musical composer who has worked on several films and ultimately hopes to direct a vampire film. That's a long-term project that he continues to work on. So this week, we are going to tap into Kirk's knowledge. We're going to look at his 5 favorite films from 2025, also a couple of honorable mentions. It has been a banner year in horror, one of the best years in a long time. And there have been some real good years recently, but 2025 has really stood out. So we welcome back to the Ghostly Gallery, Kirk Hazen. Kirk, how you been?
I've been pretty good. I'm not enjoying this weather either. As it looks like you guys, it's up and down from warm to cold, and I'd prefer it actually to stay cold, even though I know you guys are getting hammered with that element.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, it's been a pretty good holiday season. Halloween season, I spent a lot of time digging back into like Spanish horror movies, Paul Naschy, Blind Dead movies, and I'm right in the middle of a David Cronenberg marathon. From Within all the way up to his newer stuff. And right now, I think we just finished The Brood, and I just wanted to reassess all of his stuff. So that's been a lot of fun. And Cronenberg's work tends to play really well for me during the cold, blustery months because he shoots in Canada, and oftentimes it seems like it's in the winter. So that I'm just the vibe from that. It's like the perfect time to do some David.
Yeah. Just make sure you don't eat a big meal before you watch any of the Cronenberg movies, because I find those two things don't go along real well.
Yeah, it's weird. That we haven't. I did Dead Ringers last year, and I thought that was one of the more offbeat kind of
Mm,
movies where it's not too graphic, but there's something very disturbing about it nonetheless. His earlier stuff tends to play more gruesomely. The
yeah.
Brood, that bit with Samantha Egger giving birth and cleaning the fetus was I forgot about that. It had been a little while since I've seen it,
Mm.
and that got the kids and I, my two oldest, we watched it, and they were like, "Oh my god," and and I said, "Yeah, it's gruesome, but it isn't arbitrary. It's there for a very good reason as part of the story. That's what I love about him. He doesn't do it just for shock value. It's really woven into the story itself."
Interesting. Well, Tracy is going to start us off by introducing us to the first of your 5 films, your 5 favorites for 2025. And we're going to do these in reverse or descending order from 5 to 1. So, Tracy, if you would kick us off with number 5 on Kirk's list.
Awesome. So at number 5, Kirk, you mentioned The Monkey, which was directed by Osgood Perkins, the son of the great Anthony Perkins. And The Monkey tells a story of twin brothers, Bill and Hal, who find their father's old toy monkey in the attic. After their discovery, several gruesome deaths ensue. The brothers then decide to throw the monkey away, hoping that will end the carnage and allow them to move on with their lives. But the resolution to the problem is just not that easy. So it was an interesting movie. It's actually something that Bruce and I chatted about much earlier in the year on the Ghostly Gallery. And it at the time, it didn't really win either of us over, but it definitely resonated with you. So my first question is, what makes The Monkey stand out as a favorite to you?
Well, it's I hadn't read the story in years. It's in Stephen King's Skeleton Crew collection, so I completely had forgotten what anything it was about, and so I went into it kind of blind again. But I just knew that Oz Perkins did it, and I love his work, and it took me by surprise. Normally, I don't. The Final Destination films work for me pretty well, but normally I'm not a huge fan of that whole subgenre of you know instant death and accidents and stuff. It creeps me out almost too much. I tend to be a bit paranoid about icy roads and things hanging above my head, and
Yeah.
I want to live to an old age, so I don't want to die over something ridiculous or under the laws of physics, something falling on me. Uh, so watching it from the get go, I thought the dark comic tone. It was like Final Destination with a slapstick absurdity, and
Right.
not everything works in it, but enough of it did work for me. The absurdity, the laughs, the gasps, the suspense of waiting for that monkey to hit the final drum beat. um, that it really and it's dark and mean spirited in a way too that kind of took me by surprise too. Although I love Theo James and his son, there's some warmth there. They're reestablishing their
Mhm.
relationship, but I thought it was a rather ruthless movie, and it fit the tone of the film with instant death around any corner. You almost, I guess, you could take it real seriously and make everything an absolute tragedy. But it was funny to have like Oz Perkins plays the uncle in that one scene, and I, he cracks a joke or something, and then they do a hard cut to his coffin, you know, or various people dying. A lot of those hard cuts. Uh, the instant they say something ironic, bam, oh, they're dead.
Yeah.
Uh, and I really got a kick out of that. It was some of the deaths were a bit over the top, but horrific at the same time. The scene with the bees, because I'm not a big fan of stinging insects.
Mm.
I thought that was hilarious, but it almost went too far. But in the tone of the film, it kind of worked. And then that crazy ending that I don't want to spoil, that worked too in its own weird apocalyptic way. Um,
Mhm.
but I would say this is me adding that as number 5. It isn't probably as good as Bring Her Back,
Mhm.
but then I had reasons why I put The Monkey before that, which I'll get to later. Bring Her Back really got to me in
Yeah.
a way that was very uncomfortable. But the monkey, there's death all around us, and I think Oz Perkins leaned into that a bit because in his real life, his mother died tragically aboard one of the flights that hit the World Trade Centers.
That's right.
And that's something he's always dealt with, grief. You can see it in all of his work to some degree. And yeah, I thought he maybe exercise a bit of that grief in the film just by having people dying left and right. And the MacGuffin, the idea of the monkey, it's a great, fun little device. It reminded me a bit of Toy Story 3 with the monkey in that, except that has symbols.
Yes.
And I thought in Toy Story 3, I thought, wow, that monkey is scary and really almost deserves its own Pixar horror film. Just call it the monkey. This was years ago, I thought that, and then Perkins does this film. And yeah, even if it may not have as much to do with King's original story, which I need to reread to see that, I still thought it was a lot of fun and probably on this list the least serious of any of them and the least resonant as far as the times we live in, but still quite fun. And my kids and I laughed. We laughed and cringed. And we were actually, there was some suspense. As absurd as it was, I felt like it worked in a really weird way.
Oh, nice. I know, like for me, I think the whole entire movie just really surprised me. I was not expecting half the stuff that was presented on the screen, and I think that's what really threw me off. But yeah, it was definitely one of those jaw-dropping films for me.
Yeah, it's kind of bonkers. It really is. It's Oz unleashing. I don't know, 'cause some of his stuff does have dark humor in it, but it's often very, very serious and dire. And I think this is his chance to have fun after Longlegs.
Oh, yes, that's
as dark as Longlegs is, and it is dark. This is like he's unleashing his comic id.
Oh, wow. Is there one particular scene in this movie that completely sold you on putting this in your top 5, or was it just the whole entire movie as it was?
Probably the whole gestalt of it. I think the bee thing would have bothered me if it hadn't been so outrageous. That would have really shook me, but instead I laughed. I suppose the dynamic between the father and son, I always like that, kids reuniting with their parents or patching things up. And I also liked that his brother was such an irredeemable jerk. Theo James does a great job playing the dual roles of the sort of passive dad character who's been beaten down by life, and then you got that's awful brother. He's such a prick, and he does both roles so well. And I think just the overall vibe of it was fun, and extremely gruesome and bizarre, but it all worked kind of.
Yes. Oh, gruesome is definitely a really good word.
Yeah.
And out of like a scale of 1 to 5, like we do here, what is your rating for the monkey?
Yeah, I would give the monkey a solid 3. I might, if I see it again, I might give it an extra half star. But right now, I'd say it resides at a 3.
Nice. Bruce, have you seen this movie again since we originally watched it?
I haven't watched it again, but I did rewatch some of our episode where we talked about it because I wanted to refresh my memory on some of this stuff. I had forgotten that Osgood Perkins' mother, was killed in those terrorist attacks, plane crashing. And you mentioned that really plays into a lot of his films. Do you know if there's a direct correlation between that and this film, The Monkey?
Well, I know he was interviewed for this film and actually brought that up. He said in his life he's been used to unnatural death and tragedy, and his mom being the big one. But his father, Anthony Perkins, passed away due to AIDS,
right,
long time ago, and he just always kind of suffered a grief and depression over the years because of that. He didn't say anything about exercising his demons with this film, but it feels like he did. And he was specific about just random death surrounds us like a force almost, which, I know he mentioned too, he didn't want to do a retread of the Final Destination films. He wanted to take the story and do his own thing. I think he was pretty successful at it. because it makes you laugh at death and cringe at the same time. And in real life, most of us aren't laughing when terrible
Yeah.
things happen, unless you're a sick person. But this movie made it okay to
Yeah.
kind of cackle at some of it.
Yeah, to lose both of your parents within a span of about 10, 11 years, and, both in very, difficult circumstances. One was a tragedy that kind of surprised and shocked all of us. And then, of course, the
Yeah.
fact that he contracted HIV, which led to AIDS. And he died, as I recall, in the early 90s, a time when, we lost so many actors and performers from the entertainment world. It was
Yeah.
such a difficult time in the history of this country and in the history of the entertainment industry. All right, Kirk, so very good. That's your assessment of The Monkey, 3 stars. We'll move on to number 4 on your list. This is a film that I just watched the other night, 28 years later. And it's the third film in this 28 Days Later series, if you will. Tells the story of a young boy, Spike. He's 12 years old, living in a post-apocalyptic world with his father and his ailing mother. She's quite ill with an illness that they have not been able to diagnose. So at the beginning of the movie, his father takes him on a ritual journey to the British mainland. They live in Scotland, but they go to the British mainland where the zombies still reside. The whole place has been quarantined. And they do this part of this ritual so that the young boy can take part in his first kill of the infected. It's kind of a disturbing ritual. And the father takes a little bit too much pleasure in the killing of these creatures. But when Spike and his father return home after a successful venture, although they barely escape with their lives, they're treated to this incredible party celebration where Spike sees his father kind of cavalierly talking about what happened to them and also exaggerating how well Spike did in shooting bows and arrows at these creatures. Spike was a little disappointed with his own performance. His father exaggerated just how effective he was in killing some of these creatures. But even more disturbing is Spike catches his father cheating on his mother. His girlfriend, if you will, is at this party, and they sort of skulk away to a corner, and he happens to see this, and it's very traumatic. And he doesn't forgive his father for it. He basically tells his father, "You need to leave the house." And then he takes his mother, Spike does, on a journey to a mysterious doctor who lives on the British mainland in the hopes that he can diagnose what is wrong with her and perhaps provide some sort of treatment. And a lot of the film centers on the journey involving Spike and his mother, who's very sick, but somehow is able to successfully make this journey with him. The film has a great cast. You have Jodie Comer, Ray Fiennes, who plays the doctor, Dr. Kelson. We have Aaron Taylor Johnson as the father. Alfie Williams plays Spike, really good young actor, does a great job. And the film has generally received positive reviews, especially when you look at the performance of the cast, which was very strong. So give us your thoughts, if you will. What was the real strength of the film in your mind? Was it the cast? Was it the story, or a combination of both?
I think it was a bit of everything. Great cast, like you said. Alfie Williams, I've never seen him in anything else, but a great debut. He carries the film. It's his story. And Aaron Taylor Johnson is the dad. He plays that kind of maybe over enthusiastic type of dad with the whole hunting and killing thing. But I really liked the frustrations he had, and it kind of showed how the family dynamic was strained by the sick mom and just their
Mm.
whole situation. They're isolated on that island, and the tide goes in and out, and that's the only way to get back. I really love that whole atmosphere, and I think that the cinematography, while at times it can be a bit frantic, and because the other films have that shaky cam, there's also some lushly beautiful landscapes and these
Mm.
beautiful, eerie, dark forests. And I think it's an incredible sequel, even though it does have some strange moments. Like the ending is weird, but if you know what it's about, you get it. I don't know if you read up on that, and I don't want to spoil it for Tracy, but it's a really neat ending, but it does leave you hanging, and it's supposed to go into the next sequel.
Yeah.
But overall, the feeling of it, I think it's a great return for the franchise. I'm looking forward to the next one to see where they take it. And Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, it's one of those films this year that sort of attends to where we're at in the world in terms of politics, technology, everything. I love the fact that the rest of the world has solved their problems. They've gotten the infection minimized or eliminated. So France is okay now, even though it looked like it was going to go down in the second film 28 weeks later. But yeah, America's okay. It's just the isolated quarantine British Isles, which politically it says something. It's like, for whatever reason, they're going to cast away that entire area. And there's people who want to basically maintain the old ways. And so they're the stubborn folks who live on that island, and even on the mainland, like Ray Fiennes' character, Dr. Kelson. He's mysterious, and it's interesting the way they play him. You don't quite know what he's up to until around the third act, and it's a bit of a surprise. I really like what they did there, because they kind of redirect you as a red herring slightly. But the idea, the themes of isolationism and like cultural decline following Brexit and the COVID pandemic in England is something that Alex Garland really wanted to focus on, where he's like, well, there are no good old days. If you want to go back to the old days, then you're going to go back to the politics of division. And, if you want to go back to the 50s, then you're going to go back to a time when there were groups of people that didn't have rights and things like that. And the subtext of that, the people on the mainland versus the people on the island. And it almost reminded me on the island like they were part of this culture that you'd see in The Wicker Man. They weren't sacrificing anybody, but there was all those strange totems and masks and costumes and specific to that island, their rituals, just like going into the mainland and killing. You can imagine that 200 years from now, if they're still there, that's going to keep continuing because it's an isolated little petri dish of humanity. I was really impressed with it. I thought it developed the infection to a new level with these alphas, which you didn't get in the other films. But the idea of the infected evolving and some of them becoming hulking beasts that can rip your entire head off and your spine too, was really cool. Like my son Charlie, he went to see it with us, and he became obsessed with the idea of alphas. That's like his monster now. His childhood monster is the alpha, and he's drawing pictures of it and all the time. I think it was just really impressive and supported by great performances. But I think the societal and political subtext really works well, particularly when you're looking at Great Britain. But I think you can apply it to where we're at here in North America, particularly America. Wanting to go back to some traditional time period that seemed perfect, I guess, in hindsight, but really isn't. And in the idea of, okay, we're not gonna progress anymore. We're gonna go back to the old ways. I find that dangerous, and so does Alec Garland and Danny Boyle.
Yeah, Kirk, you mentioned the ending, which took some criticism and was a little confusing to me. I'm guessing there's probably a reference to the first film, which I haven't seen in a long time, so I've forgotten. That may be the problem for me. But the ending involves this gang of guys wearing tracksuits. They're really athletic, and they're led by a guy named Jimmy. Is that connected to the first movie? Is that what that is?
No, but it is connected to one of the dark moments in British culture. Jimmy Savile, the really famous TV announcer and host. He was a incredibly popular personality all through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Well, he turned out to be a monstrous pedophile on a Jeffrey Epstein level, and he did it all in plain sight. And the idea is that group, led by Jack O'Connell, idolizes Jimmy Savile. And they have the long, weird blonde hair and the tracksuits that he wore. And if you didn't know anything about Jimmy Savile, you wouldn't get that ending. And I'm like, I've seen it in the theater. I'm like, is that are they dressed like Jimmy Savile? Because I was aware of that scandal, and then it was confirmed. And the idea is that because that Jimmy character at the beginning at the church, because all of this happened around 2002, and there's no more British history after that in this alternate timeline, that Jimmy Savile in 2002 wasn't discovered to be a pedophile yet. So kids did idolize him. It was like seeing Mr. Rogers, you know. And imagine if something like that happened with Mr. Rogers, we would be shocked here in America. It really sent shockwaves through the UK back when it happened. So I thought it was a really clever, specific to the UK reference as to what would happen if your culture's frozen in time and ends at 2002, and you never discovered these things about this.
So that character, he is Jimmy Savile, or he just acting like him?
He isn't Jimmy Savile. He's the young boy at the beginning that his dad's the priest, and he manages to escape the attack on all those children. He obviously grows up as a child in this wasteland, and that's what he kind of, and I'm sure they'll explain this in the sequel, but he had probably admired Jimmy Savile and thought, okay, I'm going to make a gang and we're all going to be like Jimmy's, because Jimmy was the coolest guy and everybody loved him in the UK. And of course, these characters never know what Jimmy Savile really was. And it's another commentary, I think, by writer Alex Garland, in that your past is represented by what was frozen in time back then, but things change. And it'd be like finding out, like I said, if Mr. Rogers was this awful human being, or somebody famous today, we find out, wow, we didn't know they were so evil or terrible. So I guess the idea that the UK is stuck in time and everything's developing on its own timeline without any interference from the future Britain that we knew. It's intriguing.
I thought this was a very good movie. I wasn't expecting a lot going in, because sometimes the whole zombie thing gets overdone, and I'm thinking, oh, here's another one. But it did exceed my expectations, so I liked it. What is your ranking of 28 Years Later?
Oh, I give that one a solid 4 stars. I really liked it a lot. Yeah, I've seen it twice, so on reassessment, I can't go any lower than that, because I was really, really impressed with it. I'm really impressed with the humanity of it. I think it did what the first film does. It shows you the worst and the best of humanity in equal measure. And I think that the first film really doesn't tackle the political aftermath of Brexit and the cultural decline of Great Britain. This one does. Like Alex Garland, you can tell it's an angry script, but also full of heart. You know, the whole third act with the mother was a real surprise. I think it's great. Yeah, I'm hoping this next film lives up to its potential.
And that will be number 4 in the series. All right, let's go to your third pick for 2025, number 3 on your list. And that's a movie, Companion. A young man named Josh takes his girlfriend, Iris, to a weekend getaway at this luxurious lake estate of a wealthy man named Sergey, whose mistress is one of Josh's friends. 2 other friends join them, Eli and Patrick, so they're also at this get-together. Well, Sergey pretty quickly starts putting the moves on Iris. She resists his efforts and ends up killing him, basically in self-defense. And it is then that we discover that Iris is actually a robot with extraordinary strength, the so-called companion in the movie's title. And then we learn that her murder of Sergey is really not an accident, but rather part of a carefully planned, sinister plan created by one of the other weekend attendees. So an interesting plot hits you with a big surprise pretty quickly in this film. And then they try to resolve it after that without a heck of a lot of success. What did you like most about this film, Companion?
Off the top of my head, I really love the kind of Hitchcockian plot. It's sci-fi horror with these great twists and great reveals. You have that first moment, where you find out that Iris is a robot. Iris, go to sleep, and holy shit, really? You know, like that really took me by surprise. And then there's a couple more after that that are just really fun. Um, the direction's great. I think Drew Hancock, it's his writing directing debut. It really has done something special in the sci-fi horror genre. But Sophie Thatcher, all the performances are great, but I think Sophie Thatcher, once again, proves she's one of the best young actresses out there. She nails that character with such sensitivity, and you're just with her every moment. Her reactions to things, the way she's manipulated, and I think as a co-star, Jack Quaid plays one of the great jerk douchebags, manipulative and
Yeah.
hey, I'm a nice guy, that type of thing. He even has his nice guy speech in there, when really he's just an absolute scoundrel. And so
Yeah.
you can, it really the overall feel of it is, wow, these AI robots, Iris is more human than these humans that are around her, that are scheming and manipulating and screwing each other over. And it's a bit of a cautionary tale in a way, that's timely with AI and the automation of things, and the fact that we could end up having, like those old Twilight Zone episodes, a robot in our household taking care of things. And it struck me, it's kind of funny too, like I think of these billionaires like Elon Musk and all their technical aspirations, and I keep thinking they probably started out with some of these ideas just wanting to have a sex bot. Just, hey, let's go ahead and make a robot, and I don't have to have human emotions anymore. It can, I, if I'm going to treat a woman like this, I can treat a robot like this. And there's even a touch of, they mentioned at some point when those texts show up, that some people take these robots, they buy them, and then they torture and abuse them. And there's like no law against that. And when you see the way Iris is, she's so highly advanced and she feels love and emotion. It's very, very disturbing, and it's another one of those movies that I think, attends to the times we live in, and the rapid, accelerated advance of technology, particularly AI, but even, robots themselves. I can totally imagine us having androids in 20 or 30 years, and these jerk YouTubers doing videos where they make the robots do stupid things and get killed, or do awful things to them. And I can see there being an audience for that, unfortunately. Another dystopian, commentary on where we're headed, it seems.
Yeah, really, they treat them like slaves in this movie,
Yeah.
which is really disturbing. Kirk, I thought this was a film with great potential. It's a really creative idea. I thought it started out well, but the drawback for me was really the lack of likable characters. I didn't like any of them. Iris was a little bit more likable than the others, the robot, but there were times when she was vicious because she was programmed to be that way. I found it hard to have sympathy for anybody, true sympathy for anybody in this film. And I guess that's why I didn't like it as much as you. What's your counter to what I'm saying?
Uh, it's funny. I agree with you, actually. I to me, Iris is the main character. She's the one that I feel everything for, and we see the movie through
Yeah.
her android eyes. And the fact that they humanize her, even though she is programmed to defend and hurt and kill, it's really what she wants to do is love and be cherished, because that was her original programming. For me, I'm a huge Hitchcock fan, so oftentimes Hitchcock episodes would have nobody of any real value. They were all jerks, all scheming, and that's sort of the way the human characters in this is, that contrast. The human characters are such scoundrels, and it turns out that our main android character is actually the most human and nice and decent,
Right.
and I thought maybe the one human character, Eli, played by Harvey Guillen, his character was funny and kind of like torn. He wasn't 100% as evil as Jack Quaid's character Josh, but even he was in the end not that great. And I just kind of enjoyed that. Like, was it? I forget the other Eli's boyfriend, and I don't want to spoil too much, but he was another character that you felt for a little bit because of the situation he was in. But I totally get your view of it too. I got something different out of it, but I can understand people saying, "Yeah, these human characters suck," and the android's an android, so
Yeah.
I can't totally get into that either. But I just
Yeah.
really I found it to be extremely entertaining and one of those movies that surprised me almost at every turn. And then I felt like the ending was really like, good for you kind of ending without
Yeah.
spoiling it.
Right. And it had a kind of a humorous finish to it.
Yeah, a
You
lot of
talked about
humor in it.
artificial intelligence and the commentary that's being offered here. Do you think the commentary is that they need to stay away completely from this type of thing, robots that interact with people in such a way? Or are they just saying, if you're going to do this technology, you've got to have some limits on it? What do you think the message is?
I think it's the latter, definitely. Like there would need to be rules and laws. Once an AI android becomes so human, uh, that there should be. I'm sure people will jailbreak their android. In fact, they kind of do that at one point. Iris gets freed. People will jailbreak their androids or try to find a way around that. And there's all kinds of. I'm sure, any computer tech geek will be able to do so. But I do think it's the idea is let's tread lightly. Instead of
Yeah.
going, and I feel this way about AI in general. Let's be careful here. I mean, James Cameron warned us decades ago with the Terminator to watch out, and it just feels like, we're headed towards a Skynet future, and this movie is saying, tap the brakes on that. Because the idea of androids is pretty cool, and there might be some things that they're useful for. And certainly, I'm not against AI being used to like collate medical data and maybe cure cancer and things that they've talked about the potential of it being used for. But this is definitely to me a cautionary tale of, let's be careful. If not outright, we shouldn't have androids that we use as human beings in a negative sense. Whether it's a sex bot or whether it's your android girlfriend that you're horrible to.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with the message the director is trying to get across here.
Mhm.
So what's your rating of Companion, 1 to 5? How do you rank this one?
I've seen this one twice, and I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. I almost want to say 3.5. But I have a little bit of trouble with 28 weeks or 28 years later in Companion. I almost wanted to flip flop them. Um, but I just went with Companion as number 3. But I'd say 4 stars for this. And then on review, I'll see where I'm at. But I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought Sophie Thatcher was just fantastic in it.
Yeah, she is very good. Tracy, we're going to turn things over to you for Kirk's number 2 film. Which is it?
It is Sinners. So we've chatted about this movie in great detail on a previous podcast. But just as a reminder, this one is set in 1932 in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And the movie tells the story of identical twin African American brothers, Smoke and Stack Moore. Formerly gangsters in Chicago, they left the big city to return to their hometown of Clarksdale, where they want to own and operate a juke joint. So the brothers are determined to open up the club the same night. They spend the entire day recruiting employees, starting with their younger cousin Sammy, who is a very talented guitarist, both on screen and in real life. And as night falls, an Irishman and vampire named Remick is seeking refuge from the vampire hunting Native Americans, and in the process begins to attack people and turn them into his growing vampire army. The vampires will soon make their way to the juke joint where chaos will ensue. And this movie, there's so much to this movie. Like, there's just so much. But Kirk, I'm wondering, when you look at all of the horror films from this year that you've seen, what does Sinners do better or maybe different that makes it stand out enough to you to make it rank so high?
Hmm. Uh, it does. Sinners does have that basic setup. There's some things about it that are reminiscent of other films, like From Dusk Till Dawn. There's certainly a touch of that. Um, I've mentioned Crossroads, the idea of the South being kind of supernatural and music being able to pierce the veil. I think that's one of the big things that really sets it apart is using music and the folk culture back then, and to sort of take it into a supernatural realm like Crossroads did. And the whole idea of it being a unique mix of folk horror, the vampire genre stuff, because it does follow a lot of classic vampire rules, but also a cultural celebration of music, particularly black music, from Africa to the slave years, and to the advent of blues and rock. Uh, I think it's got a bewitching stew of elements, and I think it's also probably one of the best vampire movies, period. Just on that level, if we're just going by monster, it's my favorite in the, I can't think of anything what comes close to it. Probably Let Me In or Let the Right One In, those
Oh,
two films,
right.
which I absolutely love. This movie is very, very different from those. So there's almost like apples and oranges, even though they're in the same vampire genre, because Let Me In's a masterpiece. But Sinners, it does something really special. It's that mix of drama, action. There's a little bit of humor in it, but the idea of these vampires, this cult of vampires, being attracted to music and talent, and literally materializing. It's like a siren call from whatever distance they're at.
Right.
They arrive there because of Sammy's abilities. I find that getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's a really neat idea. I also love that it comments on the racism at the time down there. Obviously, the people that the Smokestack brothers buy the juke joint from, they're just horrible, and I'm glad they're dealt with. That great second or third ending the movie has. But also, too, Jack O'Connell's Remick. Jack O'Connell's had a good year, by the way. His Remick character, he is a vampire, and there's some sinister aspects to him, but there's almost something welcoming, like, join us, join our fold. And you can see it doesn't matter what skin color you are, where you're from, because I think, his character is an Irishman and was downtrodden and outcast, probably from his own country or the UK at some point in the distant past. So even though the vampires are scary and sinister, they're not as evil as, say, the racists, that are doing their thing in that town. And I really like that. Like, it's almost like, yeah, that kind of makes it look kind of cool. And especially when you have the final third ending with Buddy Guy and the
Right.
reveal. I think that was really fun and clever. It is one of the few movies that does those 3 or 4 endings well without frustrating you. Like, I was like, oh, there's more? Great. Bring it on. It didn't bother me at all. Whereas something like the third Lord of the Rings, you're standing in the aisle, wait, at least for me. I'm like, okay, okay, do we need this many endings? That's the movie I always think of when I think of excessive denouements,
Right.
Okay, they jumped on the bed a bunch and, in this white room. Let's move on. Does it have to be slow motion? But yeah, I think it's a really unique film, and Ryan Coogler, to go from the Creed movie and the Black Panther films to doing something really exceptional and personal, and unique. And even if he does draw upon some other tropes, he does it pretty brilliantly.
Yeah.
And just the whole vibe of the film, it's a special one, that's for sure. And I had trouble with this because it would have been in my number 1 spot if it hadn't been for Weapons.
Oh.
Because I'm just looking at it straight from a horror movie doing its job and really getting under my skin in a good way. And Sinners does that, but also it kind of took me in another direction. It made me feel, as far as the music and just a celebration of that whole sequence, showing that through the years, there's Bootsy Collins, and there's an old bluesman, and there's a rock guitar player, and all these different characters. That was unique in a horror film. You don't see musical numbers that feel like it's woven into the core of the film without it feeling superfluous.
No, that's right. So Sinners has been nominated for a Golden Globe already. Do you think it's going to be nominated for an Academy Award in the new year?
I sure hope so. I really do. I would like to see both Sinners and Weapons chosen for best film nominees. I don't know. It's really tough as to who should win. In some ways, I think Sinners is a movie of the year for me if it hadn't been for Weapons. I just for I don't- variety of reasons I'll explain, but it really deserves all the accolades. Great performances, beautiful cinematography. I always say it. Coogler must have been watching Gone with the Wind, in all those great silhouettes and magic hour shots, and just the whole tone of the film.
Oh, wow. And what was your final rating for Sinners?
I think back then it was 4.5, and I would say I'd still stick with that. Yeah, who knows? In another year, after watching it a couple times, I might evolve to 5 stars, and I think it probably will. It's just any new movie, I'm hesitant if I haven't.
Yeah.
The Shining. I know that's to me a 5-star movie. I've seen it for decades, but so I give it a little bit of time to really reach that peak.
How many times have you seen Sinners?
3 times so
Oh,
far this year.
wow.
Yeah. And I would have
Wow.
seen it more, but I didn't wanna spoil the experience too much, beat it
Yeah.
into the ground.
Mm.
But I played the soundtrack a lot. That's the music I played a great deal.
Oh, wow. Bruce, how many times have you seen Sinners? Have you gone back to watch it again? I know I haven't had a chance, but it is kind of like on my list to go back and watch it again.
I love it, but I've only seen it the one time. I think it is available on some streaming services, so at
Mhm.
some point I would like to go back to it. I just think it's an epic film as a vampire film, as a film about racism in the 1930s. As Kirk mentioned, it's beautifully shot, great special effects. It really does have a grand scale to it that a lot of horror movies don't have because maybe they don't have the budget and maybe they don't have actors like Michael B. Jordan, who's fantastic in these dual roles as these brothers. They look the same, but their personalities are different, and he captured both of them really well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, very good. Let's go to your number one choice, and that is Weapons, which you mentioned a moment ago. This is a story set in a small town called Maybrook. At exactly 2:17 a.m., 17 children from the same classroom leave their homes, run into the streets, and vanish into the darkness. The only one from this classroom who doesn't disappear is a boy named Alex. He's found the next morning sitting in the classroom by himself. That happened to me once. I didn't realize there was no school that day, and so I was the only one in the classroom. Different story completely. Anyway, when Alex is questioned by the police, he is unable to explain what could have happened to his classmates. He seems sincere. He seems clueless as to what could have happened. He really doesn't know. So, from this opening story, Weapons presents the narrative from multiple perspectives. We get to see the events through the eyes of the teacher, Justine. She's played by Julia Gardner. So she is on the surface very caring, very upset what's happened to her class. She is assumed to be guilty of some heinous crime without any evidence and is ostracized by the community. We then learn about her troubled past. That makes her seem somewhat guilty, at least to us, the viewers. We then learn the story of the determined Archer, played by Josh Brolin. He's the father of one of the children's gone missing. He is initially very suspicious of Justine, but the two will eventually work together to try to unravel this mystery. And then come the stories of a police officer who is romantically linked to Justine. We have the school's somewhat goofy principal, and ultimately a wacky character named Gladys, played brilliantly by Amy Madigan. Each of these different chapters or perspectives helps build the story, at first adding to the mystery, but then eventually giving us clues slowly as to who is behind the 17 missing children. So, Kirk, this is obviously an outstanding film. You love it. Both Tracy and I love it. It's full of layers. It's full of mystery. What is it, though, that sets it above Sinners and all the rest of the movies in what has been a banner year for horror?
Well, for me personally, the central plot device of all the children disappearing at once, the parental fear of that grabbed me right off the bat when I had heard about the premise, and I thought, okay, what's instantly intrigued and what's behind that? Mass hypnosis. The first thing that came to mind when I heard about it. The fear. I think the fear of when you're in a small town and like Julia Garner's character, she's being blamed, and the idea of like everybody's so close in that small town, almost too close. Everybody knows each other, and yet there's this mystery going on underneath, this hidden layer of awfulness that only one character is truly aware about. And it reminded me a little bit of a classic Stephen King setup, like Derry. Where you have a functional town of different characters, some good, some bad, and everybody reacting to this shocking disappearance. Uh, I I'm trying to think of like a movie that comes close to it. Like Krieger, his Barbarian film, I thought was really clever, and he had a lot of nice little twists. This one, with the structure, the Rashomon Pulp Fiction style structure, where it shows one character's perspective and jumps to the next, I thought was pretty brilliant because there is a mystery, and each little turn and each little revelation really surprised me. I didn't, like stuff like Benedict Wong playing the Goofy. It becomes so awful what happens to him in that kitchen scene. It's like, holy crap! Like this is, this Goofy character, and I love that scene in particular where it kind of it plays on the idea of us, our politeness being our undoing. Gladys just insinuates herself into the kitchen. Oh, can you get me a bowl, please? I would have kicked her ass out. I would have said, "Here's a glass of water. Keep the glass. Goodbye." But Benedict Wong and his husband, they're just so nice and oh, okay, sure, and it plays off the character he's established as sort of this goofy, slightly clueless guy. That scene really, really jolted me. And then I guess in this case, enough people have seen it, enough people know who Aunt Gladys is that we can discuss it. But she's the villain of the year for me. She's truly, truly manipulative and monstrous. And I think she's one of the things that sets it apart, aside from the structure and the cinematography, the performances. Amy Madigan, I didn't even realize it was her at first, because I remember her from that chilling ghost story classic Field of Dreams from 1989.
Yeah.
I say that jokingly. I love that movie, but it is a ghost story, and she's a revelation. It's interesting too, the character itself. I guess Krieger had talked to her, and he gave her two choices. One was she's doing what she's doing to not die, so she can beat her afflictions, her physical afflictions. And then the second option is she's an ancient eldritch being, not even human, hiding out in a human body. And he said, don't tell me which one you picked. And he still doesn't know, and so you're watching it and you can go either way with that character. I think it's so bizarre and intriguing. Yeah, it really surprised me. It kept me on edge, all the way up to that ending, which to me has one of the best comeuppances for a villain I've seen in years. Like what's weird about it too is when it happens, you're like, yeah, awesome, and then you kind of laugh because it's almost absurdly cartoonish, but it makes sense what's happening. But it's kind of funny in a way. It turns into this crazy chase farce almost, with a great ending. And I really felt like it sort of attended to some of the fears we have as a society, the way rumors spread. I'm surprised they didn't have social media used in it more, actually, because I have the local town message board here in my area. There's a lot of drama and a lot of ridiculousness that goes on in it, and a lot of rumors. And I'm not involved in any of it. I just look to see what when garbage day is coming, or whatever during the holidays. But there could be a sequel made, and you could make it social media being one of the instigators of something, of this story. And if they're doing an Aunt Gladys sequel, that's a hell of a character to dig into. She really made the movie for me. But I do think Julia Garner was great. It was a complicated character. Same with Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin, he loves his son, and you find out through the story at a certain point that his son's kind of a little bastard. He's kind of a bully, and whether that's his dad's fault or whatever, you never really know. But you also know that there's a dad that loves his kid, and it is touching. That last shot at the end is very touching. From after all the stuff we've experienced, and I did expect the film to have a more darker, vicious ending because it takes you on a journey. With what happens. I feel like I'm rambling too much, but there's so much you could talk about with this film, up to and including the spell that Gladys puts on people and what it turns them into, which is one of the scariest things I've seen in a long time. The bulging eyes and the insane rage that these avatars of Gladys have. The stuff that she does to the parents of the little boy is that the fork scenes at the table. I was cringing. I'm like, my God, this woman is absolutely despicable. And right away, it just once it takes that turn and introduces her, you're off to the races. It's great movie.
Yeah. One of the things I love about it, and there's a lot to love, the mystery. You really have no idea exactly what has happened. I didn't think Julia Garner's character, Justine, was responsible. I thought she was innocent from the beginning, even though she did have this checkered past.
Same here.
But I certainly had no idea the conclusion was going to come to. And it does have supernatural overtones. I didn't know that was going to be the case. I kind of figured there was going to be some sort of a supernatural overtone, but I didn't think it was going to be witchcraft necessarily. And that's what we saw. Amy Madigan, is a great actress, tremendous career. This is a performance I think she's going to be remembered for, along with Field of Dreams, as you said. Brolin was great. I don't think he gets enough credit for the job that he did. It's a fantastic film, but I really did love the mystery aspect of this. When you can do mystery and horror, blend them together, works really well. Tracy, what thoughts do you have, or what question do you have for Kirk on this one?
I absolutely love this. It was so much different than what I expected. I actually didn't really know what I expected when I saw it. Again, I've only seen this one time, and it's on my list to go back and look at it again. There's so much to it. I really loved it. And just kind of one of the questions, it just kind of goes back to Aunt Gladys. We know that they're going to be doing a prequel about this character. And I'm just kind of curious how you think maybe the filmmakers might approach it. Do you think they'll approach it a little bit differently? Or do you hope that they kind of keep the same tone and style as they did with Weapons?
Well, I wouldn't want them to do what they did with the X and the Pearl movies, where each movie is a completely different style. I hope that they stick with the offbeat, dark humor and weirdness of Weapons. But of course, if they're going to go back in the past, they probably will have to humanize her a little bit. And whether or not Krieger will take the approach of her being human and awful, or an eldritch being that feeds off life force and energy, hard to say. I kind of like the latter a little bit. I think that's intriguing. But yeah, I do hope that, obviously, I hope they don't fumble the ball and do something that's not as good. But I somehow doubt they're going to be able to capture the heights of this film because of its setup. But she's such a fascinating character that I'd rather see her in a movie than another Terrifier film, for example.
Yes.
For sure. And what's neat about this is I had forgotten, after watching Weapons, I'm a huge Rod Serling Night Gallery fan. And there's an episode in season 2 called "Since Aunt Ida Came to Stay," and it's got James Ferrantino and Michelle Lee and Jeanette Nolan. Jeanette Nolan, who's fantastic actress back in the day, and she played witches really, really well. She was a witch in a Thriller episode called The Strega, I believe. I think she was in that one, but she's always great as like type of crone type of character. She was young when she did a lot of these roles. They put makeup on her, and she just nailed it. And in that story, she basically insinuates herself into the house of Ferrantino. It's Michelle Lee's Aunt Ida, and starts basically taking over. And by the end of the episode, you see what she wants to do. She wants to take over a young body. And I just thought, wonder if Krieger had seen that. Not that he, I don't want to even think it's a ripoff, but it just reminded me so much of that idea. And even having an aunt, this unwelcome aunt who shows up on your doorstep and, well, we got to take her in because she needs help. And instead she's this monstrous old witch, literally. I found that a neat comparison. But I think Aunt Gladys is far more evil than Aunt Ida, actually.
Yeah.
You know, when you're going to victimize children, that's the lowest of the low. And she victimizes an entire town. And that's the other thing. It shows you the resonating of something like that happening. I flashed on a little bit on the school shootings from 2012, the Sandy Hook school shootings, and how awful that was. And that traumatized the nation, traumatized the world, really. And how I can imagine in that town, it's something that's going to resonate until generations die off. And even then, it's part of their history there. And the same thing would go with the town and weapons, which takes place in Pennsylvania, actually. I'm not sure where exactly, but it certainly feels like a Pennsylvania type of little small town setting based on my experiences.
So, Kirk, you gave 4.5 stars to Sinners. Do you go 5 with Weapons?
I've seen it twice. I would have to, I guess because I love Sinners so much too, I'm going to go with 4.5.
Okay.
It might be 5 the next viewing, the same with Sinners. But yeah, I'll be a little bit conservative and say 4.5. But for me, it's the horror film of the year in terms of what a horror film should function as: the mystery, the unsettling aspect, the fact that you have a villain for the ages. I mean, Aunt Gladys deserves her own Aurora model kit. You know, she's like, you just take that classic witch kit they had back then and just put Aunt Gladys in there over the cauldron, you know. Here, you mind if I have a bowl, you know, and just have her little bowl in her hands as she's breaking branches. I think it's a modern classic, like Sinners as well.
Yeah. It's a great idea on the Aurora model kit. Somebody will come up with that for real.
Yeah, there'll be a NECA figure with that. You know, even the same lighting too, the fire-lit cauldron and all that.
So those are Kirk's top 5 films in reverse order. We start with The Monkey, then 28 Years Later. Number 3, Companion. Number 2, Sinners. And number 1, Weapons. Those Kirk's picks for 2025. Now, there were 5 other films, Kirk, you wanted to mention as honorable mentions. So we'll get some brief thoughts on each of those. And let's start with a movie that, both Tracy and I have seen it, and I just saw it very recently, and that's Bring Her Back. Your thoughts on that one?
Oh, you know, this might have ended up on my list as like number 4, except strangely, given as disturbing as Weapons is, Bring Her Back got under my skin in such a way that it hurt me a little bit. Like it's hard to explain. Sally Hawkins is so good as a manipulative, monstrous mom. Like I feel bad for her grief and everything, but what she does to these siblings and what she does to that other little boy are inexcusable. And Aunt Gladys, you know, she does take the cake as the villain of the year, but Sally Hawkins is right underneath. And I got so angry at her character, even more than Aunt Gladys in some ways, because you have to deal with her almost the entire film, her manipulations and awfulness. There were moments that my stomach doesn't churn very often, but like the teeth moment with the little boy, got under my skin, and just the overall tone of it, and my heart broke for the little boy and the 2 siblings, the older brother trying to do what's right and assess the situation and do something about it, and at every turn, you know, he's told he's the bad one. You know, it just really got under my skin, but I thought it was excellent, a really good follow up to Talk to Me. You know, so what's the name of the Filiu brothers, I think, or the Filippo brothers?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what their third one is. I just hope it doesn't bother me that much. It's just strange. It got under my skin, but I would give that, like, as far as stars and stuff, I would give that, because it did bother me a lot, but it's very good. I'd say 3.5 to 4 stars, but I doubt I'll watch it again because it you know, it hurt. And then the ending, I thought the ending was really very, very sad and tragic. but at the same time, like I did want a comeuppance for Sally Hawkins, and I didn't quite get that. So, that's why the Aunt Gladys ending worked for me, I think, better.
Yeah. Another one is the Netflix film, which so many people have seen and so many have loved, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. What'd you think of that one?
Oh, I really liked it a lot. It if there's one little negative, Guillermo del Toro tends to go for big grandeur and big things. The some of the buildings and stuff, like the lab that he had, almost seemed too big and massive to be true. Some of that was almost like in the fantasy realm, which I do appreciate. But otherwise, I really liked it a lot. It had a lot of heart. The way that the story was told from different points of view was terrific. I like the jaunty, fun tone in the beginning with Oscar Isaac. He really played Victor quite well, as a bit of a jerk at times, but brilliant. I love Mia Goth. Her character was great. But really what sold me on the film, and it was cooking along pretty good, and then it took the turn into maybe adding another star to my rating when it went to the creature's point of view. Jacob Elordi played him great. No wonder they picked him. He's 6'5". He really sells the character's size. I'm 6'2", relatively tall, and somebody 6'5", that's huge. And he really sold the physicality and the emotional aspect really well. When it went to the creature's view and he was at that farm, it was heartbreaking. Like you go from this arrogant character that Oscar Isaac's playing to this pathetic, poor but scary creature, and the humanization of that I thought was terrific. Great atmosphere in the whole film. If there was one character that I felt was a little superfluous or a little annoying, was Christoph Waltz. Just, I don't know if he needed to be there, except yeah, I really like him as an actor. I love Hans Landa from Inglourious Basterds, one of the great characters in the last 30 years. But I don't know if he didn't feel like he was needed almost, other than being Mia Goth's dad, and then him providing the funding, which I get. But I don't know why. I can't even put my finger on it, because I've seen it once, and maybe I'll reassess it. However, I have to say that it took me by surprise in the end. Love the scenes in the Arctic too, when they're on the ship. But at the end, the way it wrapped up, being about forgiveness, really took me by surprise. I expected a battle between the creature and its creator, and it to be a bit more, I don't know, angry. And it was up to a point, but I was really taken aback. Kind of got a little bit choked up at the end, and there's not that many movies out there about forgiveness on that level, because what he put the monster through is terrible, and even to some level vice versa. But to have that tone and that wrap up, I think Guillermo del Toro. I can't remember how the book Frankenstein ends. It's been 30 years since I've read it, but he really surprised me with that feeling at the end, and the way that the Frankenstein and his creature have that moment. I thought it was pretty cathartic, actually.
A third pick for your honorable mentions is a film I have not seen. I don't know if Tracy has seen it, called Good Boy.
Oh yeah. This one was really unique. They spent apparently 3 years making it, because when you have a dog, it's tough to get perfect takes. Stanley Kubrick would have gone crazy. Apparently, this director, Ben Leonberg, he got the idea from the movie Poltergeist, and the way the dog in the 1982 film reacted to the ghosts initially. And he's like, well, dogs would probably notice this before humans would. And I think he's right. Animals in general sense things. And I thought the dog was fantastic. The cinematography was really exceptional. The mood and atmosphere of that little house out in the woods, the way that the sound effects in the soundtrack, eerie, weird sounds, and so much of it from the dog's point of view, how an animal might hear these things and sense these things. Yeah, it's like, and it does have a little bit of that, without spoiling it too, since you guys have seen it. There's a touch of that ambiguous, is it supernatural or is it the dog sensing something wrong with the owner. Is it metaphorical or is it real? And that's one area where weapons, I love it. It is supernatural, 100%. This movie leaves things a little open to interpretation, but you can go either way. And I think it's quite an accomplishment to have the dog hold your attention through the whole film. And the neat thing is, it's like a Peanuts cartoon. The adults, you never really see their faces very well. They're not going wah 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 or anything, but
Right.
yeah, you don't see their faces. It's all arms, shoulders, knees, feet. Everything's from the dog's point of view, and that was impressive. Very atmospheric film, and I'm curious to see what this director does in the future.
And then the last two films, I believe they're both based on Stephen King stories. If I'm wrong, please correct me on that. The first one is The Long Walk.
Oh, well, both. I guess it's worth discussing both sort of as a double feature. I look at these, the stories, at least King's original stories, it's his Dystopian America double feature from the Bachman books, because they were in the same volume. And I remember reading both as a kid and being blown away and alternately thrilled and terrified by what the potential of these setups. And I think with the Long Walk, that alternative 70s timeline worked really well for me. Apparently, George Romero was going to direct this film, and you guys know the basic setup that the government literally sponsors this walk from, I think it's from Maine all the way down to like Georgia, and it's one continuous walk, and it's all young men between the ages of say 16 and 20, and you sign up and you get into a lottery, and you have to keep a pace of 3 miles an hour. If you go below that, you get a warning. You have 3 warnings before a soldier with an M16 shoots you down, and to me, that's when I was reading as a teenager, I thought, wow, that's pretty crazy. And the concept of it, you got the general, and he's this sort of, I guess you could say, fascist, far right wing type of character who basically is doing this long walk because America's in such dire straits for unknown reasons. It's very ambiguous. But the long walk literally gives a boost to the American economy. And that's one of the reasons why they do it. Like Mark Hamill at one point says, be proud, boys. The economy's going to be looking really good after this, and I'm just thinking, wow, it really nails something about the era we're living in now. The jingoism, the fact that all of America watches this and they're thrilled and think it's kind of cool when one of the kids gets killed, but they also honor them too. Like, they put their hands over their heart and, that was a great thing you did there, but they're also a bloodthirsty audience. And sometimes I feel like we're heading in that direction with the United States and maybe the world, with reality TV and all of that stuff. And the Running Man, of course, attends to the same thing. You have a game show where ordinary citizens in this dystopian world sign up to win money. And in the Long Walk, of course, if you're the last winner, you get everything you ever want. Money, you get one wish. It can be anything. And it's really interesting how that plays out in the film. But I think both of these movies really attend to, even back in the 70s, King's view of where we could go in the future. And I think The Running Man especially is prescient with the way reality TV is and all these contests and all these YouTube videos of stunts and things like that. And literally our own sitting president recently came out and said next year for the anniversary of America, the 250th anniversary, he wants to take a male and female from each state and have them compete. I don't know if it's athletically or intellectually. I don't know if it's going to be chess or hand-to-hand combat. But isn't that a great idea, guys? Let's go ahead and have characters from each state, male and female, compete to see who's like the coolest patriotic American. And it just, when I heard that, I thought, oh, that's an Onion article. That's an Onion satire. No, it's real.
Yeah.
He said it, just like the UFC match.
I hope there's not going to be a punishment for the loser.
Yeah, you never know. If anything, they'll be publicly shamed, probably. And here's the losers. But then the winners, they'll get to go to the White House and get a picture taken, and get a red hat or some ridiculous thing. So both of these movies, King really saw into the future on a certain level. And I think probably The Running Man is more like where we're at now. But I could see The Long Walk coming into reality. We live in absurd times.
Yes,
I don't
we
want to get
do.
too political, but we live in
Yeah.
crazy times. Rod
I
Serling
saw the
would
original.
not be happy.
Yeah. I saw the original version of The Running Man, which I really like a lot. It's probably more
Me too.
sci-fi than horror. But to me, the best character was Richard Dawson's, and obviously
Oh
he's
yeah.
gone now. Who handles that role in this film?
Josh Brolin, uh, and he
Oh,
does
okay.
quite well. Josh is
Does he?
he's terrific in it, and I almost wish there was more of him. Um,
Yeah.
they in the original '87 film, they give Richard Dawson really great scenes. Him, in the makeup chair, saying awful things and manipulating stuff. But they don't give Josh Brolin that many moments like that. It's kind of I was a little disappointed. They do stick with
Mm,
Glenn Powell's Ben Richards character, who,
yeah.
unlike Arnold, and I do love that movie. The original Running Man can be ridiculous, but it's also a lot of fun and it's a great satire of that time. But I do think Glenn Powell, his Ben Richards, is much angrier and pissed off. He has a family. He has a kid that's sick. It's much more based on the book, which is
Mm,
fantastic. And it does resonate more. I think with Brolin. It's all about the ratings and the money, and it's all about image. And as angry as Ben Richards is, he wants him to be angrier. That's the spirit. He slaps him on the cheek. There's a scene where Glenn Powell says, "I don't know how, and I don't know where, but I'm going to figure out a way to f you up." And
mm,
Brolin goes, "That's the spirit." It slaps him on the cheek lightly, like a little boy, and that just sums up the film for me. It's not a
yeah.
perfect film. I think The Long Walk actually sticks to its premise better, and it's a more faithful adaptation of the story. But The Running Man does go back more to the original King story than the 1987 film, and it's a lot of good ways. I think if anything, this new Running Man probably tries to do too much. There's almost too much in it, and they needed it to pare it down. But I liked it a lot. Glenn Powell's terrific, and there's so many things in it that just echo the times we live in, and that's definitely intentional. You can see Edgar Wright and Francis Lawrence, who directed The Long Walk, letting things resonate. And most of us will see it. I'm sure some people will watch it and not see it because they're blind to it, but it definitely is polemics about the time we live in and where we could be heading, unfortunately.
So the 5 honorable mentions for Kirk Hazen: The Running Man, The Long Walk, Good Boy, Del Toro's Frankenstein, and Bring Her Back. Kirk, we really appreciate your efforts. As always, great job recapping 10 of the best horror films. A great year for horror in 2025. We do appreciate it. Thank you,
Absolutely.
sir.
Oh, I appreciate you guys having me back on. It was a great year, probably a banner year for horror. And yeah, thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
We'll take a short break, and when Tracy and I come back, we'll each have our top 3 picks of horror films for 2025. Stay with us. Back in a moment on The Gallery. Welcome back to the Ghostly Gallery podcast. We thank, as always, Kirk Hazen for a great job reviewing the horror year of 2025. Kirk listed 10 films, 5 honorable mentions, 5 top picks. We're not going to go quite into that depth. Tracy and I each are going to give us our 3 best picks for the 2025 calendar year. And Tracy, we'll begin with you. What's number 3 on your list?
Okay, so number 3, I selected the movie Keeper. And it's another folk horror type movie, and it's also directed by Osgood Perkins, starring Rossif Sutherland and Tatiana Maslany. And it's a pure psychological horror. It is really, really fantastic, and it really took me by surprise. I wasn't really expecting too much from this one, but once I watched it, I was like, yes, this hits the spot. It's a slow burn type horror film, but it's so eerie and very supernatural and very mysterious. It's a really good one. So I put that at my number 3, which kind of blows me away. So that kind of shifted my list a little bit. Coming in at number 2, I selected Bring Her Back, which we talked about earlier with Kirk. I thought that was a phenomenal movie. Definitely multiple visceral scenes that just leaves you with that pit in the middle of your tummy. But I truly loved this one. I thought it was fantastic. And my number one spot was Sinners, of course. My absolute favorite from 2025. But again, I've not seen all the horror movies that were made, but those were kind of like my top three. Weapons would have came in at number 4, and Mother of Flies would have come in at number 5. But super fantastic, all of them, for sure.
Yeah.
What about you? How did you do for your movies?
Well, before I tell you, I think that's an important caveat that you give, and it applies to both of us. We haven't seen every horror movie. We've seen a lot of them.
Yes.
We've seen what I think are most of the best ones. I guess it's possible that either of us might watch a film in the next few weeks from 2025 that somehow penetrates our top 3. But for the films that we've seen, these are our picks. And I've seen the films that you mentioned. I think they're all very worthy. A little bit different from mine. At number 3, I'm going to go with a movie that we did half a show on, Black Phone 2, which I think is just outstanding. It hasn't received the credit it deserves, maybe because sequels are usually disappointing. This one is not. It's one of the great horror sequels ever. Full of action, full of drama, interesting characters. You've got sympathetic kids who are the leads battling the horrific villain, the Grabber, played by Ethan Hawke. Tremendous culminating scene on the frozen ice. Just a great film, great cinematography. Really love that one. So that's number 3. At number 2, I go with Weapons, which was Kirk's choice for the best film of the year. Weapons, without question, a standout. I mentioned earlier, it's a great blend of mystery and horror. It's a layered film. It's one that sort of unravels slowly in terms of giving you the clues, and then it comes together with a great crescendo, great performances across the board. So I really loved Weapons. But I'm with you. Sinners is the number 1 pick for me. Epic horror film, done so well, acting, cinematography, special effects, interesting story, just a tremendous effort. It really shows what horror at its best can be, and that is, in my mind, an Academy Award winning type film. If this film is not at least nominated for Best Picture, I'm going to lead a protest on the Academy, wherever. They must be in LA somewhere. I'll have to get on a plane and make a trip there and express
Yes.
my disgust. I do think it's going to get nominated. Whether it's going to win, I don't know, because I haven't seen a lot of the other films that are likely to be nominated. The Academy tends to go with nominations for films that are quote unquote artistic as opposed to popular. I think Sinners is both. It's popular, it's artistic, it's really high art, and it's just a wonderful movie, really from start to finish. It's a great follow up to, in my mind, last year's best horror film, Nosferatu.
Yeah.
It's an epic film on that scale, so I just love that one.
Oh, nice. Those
So
are
those are my
really
choices.
great
Yeah.
choices. Really great choices.
So pray that Sinners is nominated, so I don't have to make a cross country trip.
Oh, but it would be so much fun.
You haven't seen me on a plane. That would be a problem.
Oh, dear.
I have a terrible fear of flying. We'll have to get
Oh.
into that in one episode coming up.
We'll have to, like, find a horror movie where there's, like, an incident on an airplane.
Yeah. Well, you think of that great Twilight Zone episode, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet with William Shatner.
Well, there you go.
He's partly a nervous wreck for other reasons, but he also doesn't really like flying. And turns out he's pretty scared of something on the wing, which actually is real. My fears, I think, are a little more imagined than those of William Shatner. So, well, Tracy, great job
dear.
with the show. Thank you for your picks. We do appreciate it. Good job.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. And there's so many more fantastic horror movies that could have definitely made this list. We'll have to kind of like dig into that on another episode, and maybe we could talk about some of the things we're looking forward to in 2026 with some of the new ones coming out. So stay tuned for a future episode.
Absolutely, including a new rendition of Dracula, among
That's
others.
right. That's right.
A reminder to all our fans and followers, if you like our show, and we assume you do if you're listening, make sure to like it on YouTube, listen to it on Podbean. You can do both if you'd like, and also share it with friends on the internet as well. We always appreciate those recommendations. We want to thank Tracy and our fine guest, Kirk Hazen, for their contributions over the last hour and a half. We appreciate them. We appreciate all of you joining us in this Museum of the Macabre. We do hope we'll see you again next time, right here in the Ghostly Gallery.